Good afternoon, everybody. This is a Voice of Agro. I'm CEO and founder of Splinterlands, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here with you guys today. As you can see, I got my chops back, so I feel more like myself. I'm getting some reports that not everybody can hear everything, but we're working through that right now. Sorry for the a little kerfuffle there, but it should be over soon. Okay, so today we have a couple different things that are going on. So we have sort of our normal team, and our normal team is presenting. But above and beyond that, I have two very special guests with us for this show. First off, we're going to have Ali. Ali's from Blockchain Founders Fund, and we're going to kind of talk through his role. It is a surprisingly small number of people that understands how essential this man has been to our business. He hasn't been on a town hall before, which given that he's been here for like 4 years, is actually just kind of like a little embarrassing. I think people need to know who this guy is more. And then we also have Jarvie. So if you guys don't know, Jarvie and Asgarth are the two people behind Peakmonsters. They're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff with us today and talking through some of their new features, which, Jarvie doesn't get jazzed up and really freak out about things very much. But, just within the last week or two, he reached out to me and probably the most jazzed I've seen him in a long time. So I'm pretty excited for what Peakmonsters is going to be showcasing, and how we're getting these new features added to the ecosystem. So why don't we take a second and hear from the team members what else we're going to be doing today, what we're talking about, and I don't know, there's big things brewing, and folks got to know. So we got ourselves a Nate, a WeirdBeard, and an Investigator. Nate, you want to go kick us off and talk a little bit about what you're working on these days?
Yeah, same as normal. Just whatever you want to talk about is what I'm going to talk about. But I'm assuming the big thing is probably going to be either the Dragon airdrop or land or who knows what. So we'll wing it as necessary, but it's sure to be fun.
Yeah, Dragon airdrop is coming right up, right? We're 5 days away from the airdrop, maybe 6, something like that.
It's coming.
So we're almost here. So we got to talk about that. WeirdBeard, what's going on in your world for this show?
An update on the ghost card tournaments that people were having issues with over the weekend, as well as the results of the community leader straw polls. So we finally have who we're going to be announcing as our community leaders, and a few other things that relate to the future of tournaments.
Sweet. And then Investigator, I hear there's a release tomorrow. What are the main things on the docket for that?
Good afternoon. Lots of fixes for things, including some things related to the tournaments that WeirdBeard was just talking about. Some more pages being moved over to tech modernization, and some new filtering for card sets.
All right. Okay, guys. So let's go start with Ali. I should do more to go promote all the people that are on the board into the Splinterlands universe. I guess we met out in Singapore, didn't we, Ali? Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. I think it was 2018, end of 2018.
We were just this tiny little startup, didn't have a total clue as to what we were building or how we were going to do it. And, a little bit I was looking for fundraising, but also just looking for help and looking for some support. I'm a PhD chemist, had no background in outside of Steam it blogging in this space. Matt's been in the space, but neither of us came with a giant VC backing. Neither of us came with a freaking, He-Man or Transformers. There wasn't a brand here, a business that we spun out of, or that we had, we didn't come out of the Magic the Gathering realm or Hasbro. We were just two dudes, right? So we were looking for help early on. And I met Ali at a conference and, got to chatting, and, he talked about how he had created a exchange back in the day. And he talked about how he had sold that exchange and was building an accelerator. And we started working with them. The company is Blockchain Founders Fund. And I think it's close to 3 years now that Ali has been coming to a weekly board meeting that we run, helping to go make decisions for this company, helping us to figure it out. And when we launched the SPS token, You know, as a United States based entity, we can't like, we really can't get into like token issuance ourselves. That's a whole bunch of legal trouble. So one of the things that we did is we created an overseas foundation. Originally, for like the very first part of that, Matt and I were part of it, but you know, as we looked into laws more and as we figured it out, we said, no, you know, we really shouldn't be here. We need to step down. We need to put this thing in the hands of somebody that we trust. And both Matt and I, without any hesitation, said the guy that has to lead this is Ali. So Ali is actually the head of the foundation, you know, that's associated with our DAO. And I don't know, there are just so many ways that this guy has been here and influential. He helped get SPS like out into the world and into the hands of you know, so many different people, getting it exposure. A bunch of the listings have happened because of Ali's involvement. You know, some of them were completely spontaneous, but some of those we had to kind of finagle. And Ali has just been instrumental to this business from not quite day one, but pretty freaking close. So it's embarrassing to me that we haven't introduced you yet. But Ali, please say hi to the community. So stoked to have you here. And anything that I missed in the introduction, anything else that you'd want to add?
Yeah, no, really excited to be here. It is long overdue. I actually just looked it up. We've been having weekly conversations since the end of 2019. So, you know, it's been an entire journey, right? I mean, you know, I think at the time we were probably in the hundreds of users that were active. And it's, you know, it's definitely an entire, you know, tectonic shift and some incredible progress that Splinterlands, you know, of course, powered by the community, has, you know, brought us here today, right? So excited to be here.
What prompted this? So what I think what finally got you on here was that you did a proposal, and we wanted to kind of talk through it and some of why we're doing it this way, why you're the guy that's doing it, and why it might actually make sense. So I you know, I think most people kind of coming in and saying, hey, give me 20 million out of 120 million SPS so that I can deal with listings. Like that would sort of be, I understand that the community would be like, who the hell are you? F off. Why is this happening? There's not enough like trust or history with this person that this would make any sense. But can you kind of talk us through some of what the challenges are, and why, first off, why can't we just like do it? Like if there's a listing that we want to do, how come we can't just do one specifically for that one listing? What's the problem with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let me sort of chat through and provide a bit of context as well on how listings work, how it's evolved. You know, I can share a little bit of, you know, insights from my experience, you know, in the space for, you know, fairly long time.
And just to add, tell us a little bit about Blockchain Founders Fund, because you know, you're not just doing this with Splinterlands. You know, you started as an accelerator, you had the exchange, you had the exchange, you started as you sold it, you created an accelerator. That accelerator is now a VC. You work with exchanges all the time. You know, how many different portfolio companies are sort of associated with what you're doing these days?
Yeah, it's so we actually just crossed 100 portfolio companies. We were about 110. You know, which is a big, you know, growth spurt over the last 5-6 years that we've been doing this.
And I get the sense that you use Splinterlands as a flagship, right? Like you talk about us frequently, and you're pretty proud of your involvement here. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you know, Splinterlands, and I say this all the time, right? I think what you and the team here and the community has done is unprecedented, right? I mean, even when you look at, you know, what's happening in the last year as an example, like despite everything going on in the market, you know, Splinterlands says a lot of things first. I mean, I still see every day people are talking about, oh, like what is the potential of like rentals of NFTs? This is a really cool theoretical thing. And I mean, Splinterlands has been doing it for, you know, well
Years.
over a year now. Yeah. And, you know, 2, 3, 4 million daily rental cards. And, you know, you see the same thing with soulbound NFTs, like and how soulbound can be used. Like every day people are talking theoretically about how these things can be used. And I mean, Splinterlands already has it implemented, right? And I think there's, you know, countless examples of where Splinterlands is pioneered things in this space that oftentimes I think, maybe gets overlooked because we operate on Hive instead of Ethereum. But obviously what we're doing here wouldn't work on Ethereum, right? So
Yeah. So you have all these different portfolio companies, and you work with them on exchange listings. So I just wanted to give that background so that it's not like, hey, here's some random dude that we like, but it's like, here's a guy that works with 100+ different blockchain companies. They all have to get listed. Ali helps with all of this. Ali formerly ran an exchange. So it's not like he's just some noob that's out here or just some business guy. Like, he actually freaking ran an exchange doing this. So what are you seeing in the market these days? How do you make the listing sausage, right? Like, how do we actually turn some relationship into an actual listing, and what's that look like?
So let me provide maybe some broader context before we sort of go directly into this part, right? So, from the BFF standpoint, we actually do have a number of exchange executives personally invested in our fund. So senior executives at some of the biggest exchanges in the world. We've also got one of the largest exchanges directly invested in the fund. Many others are invested, everything from GSR to Ripple, Polygon, all sorts of others, many names I can't mention. And, at the end of the day, like, adoption of the token is critical to it having value, right? And so, this is critical, I think, to the long-term success of Splinter Shards and the ecosystem as a whole. And I know the proposal initially, I guess, hasn't gotten a ton of positive reception. I guess it's good that I've got the resurrectability on the card here, because this is definitely something we need to resurrect. And if we can't do this, like, I'll explain maybe the context of how exchange listings work and the breakdown of the types of fees, so that everyone is aware of really what's going on here. And of course, for confidentiality reasons, like, we can't talk to any specific contract offer or potential contract offers. And that's just, like, exchanges are very particular on this. Like, if you mention anything in progress, it'll get pulled very quickly, and it'll not be good.
Right. That's one of the limitations that we have here. Like, I would love to go in and be like, exchange X has asked us for price Y. DAO, please give us exactly that much money. But we can't do that. And the reason that we can't is that there's non-disclosure agreements where we can't say, this is the price that we are looking for. We need this much money. I mean, maybe later on you guys can discover things by looking at things on chain or something, but we ourselves as a business can't do that. And secondly, the SEC has all these rules around, like, are you promoting the token? Have you turned it into security and things like that? Splinterlands, the other option is, like, Splinterlands just fronts cash. We as a business put it on the exchange, but that leads into all kinds of, like, SEC. I don't know if they're violations, but they're like, that really starts getting into waters that both me and Matt look at and say, this is not good for the community or the business. If we as a business just go ahead and, like, handle all the listings, there's a lot of legal complications that come with that. And they could be very bad for everybody in this ecosystem. So the only option that I see is that the DAO has to fork out some cash for any listings that we would want to do, that we have to pay for. And we can't just, like, ask, give us this specific amount of money, because that would break our NDA. So the best plan seems to be, let's go and let's get pre-approval from the DAO to kind of put together some listings. Because I think it's safe for us to say that there are exchanges that want to list Splinter Shards, but some of these have fees. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I'll break down sort of the types of fees as well in a second. But I guess, like, one of the main things to mention, right, is, tokens really only keep value if we can grow the community and the ecosystem, right? And I think this aligns really well with what we've been attempting to do at Splinterlands, right? So we launched Rooney on the Ethereum blockchain. We're continuing to, I know there's fixes coming down the road for new user experience, things like this that all need to line up, I think, with making sure we can drive stronger exchange listings and wider reach. But let me break down, what I've seen historically and then the types of fees, right? So historically, been looking at exchanges extremely closely since, early 17, even you could say late 16. And, we've seen fees range from, could be free very, very rarely, and I'll touch on why, all the way to $20 million US in a bull market, right? Which is crazy. And what's interesting about exchange fees is they move with the market. So it's not that, hey, the token's worth less right now. It's a dramatically, we can just wait till the market goes up and then we can pay the same fee. It's the fees will change dramatically as the market goes up, right? And this maybe is frustrating, but that's sort of how it works. Let me break down the types of fees. So when you're looking at exchange like listings, there's essentially three types of fees. So the first fee is a listing fee. The second fee is a marketing or promotion fee. It's broken down to a number of different components in terms of like types of marketing, etc. And then there's a deposit fee, right? So there's these three types of fees. Now, normally, these fees also pretty much almost always include stablecoin piece. Now, as part of the proposal that we've made, we didn't propose having any stablecoins associated with this proposal. And the reason is because we've got extremely strong relationships, and simultaneously because the market isn't that favorable, we're able to convince some exchanges that we want to do this essentially in SPS. Otherwise, this could be very, very expensive when we're talking about like top 10 exchange listings. So that hopefully provides a little bit of context on the breakdown. Now, we've been fortunate enough right now to be in discussions with a number of top 10 exchanges, looking at, basically, as I said, waiving that entire USDC or USDT component, and being able to do this all in SPS, and have been able to simultaneously bring down that number very significantly, right? Like even in this market, a lot of exchanges are still looking for $500,000, $1 million US or more in terms of fees. And obviously that's not even something that we would entertain. Like that's extremely expensive. And so we're working as much as possible to be able to bring this down. But I think it's important to remember that, as the market goes up, so as Bitcoin goes 30, 40, 50K, these exchange listings are going to go up probably even faster than the rate Bitcoin's going up. And that's typically what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, that to me is a challenge, right? So, and when I try to think through this, it's something like, well, would I want to, if the exchange even just takes the tokens and dumps them or gives them to their users and they dump them, do I want that to be sub $500,000 of tokens now, or do I want that to be like 10 to $20 million of tokens later? And to me, I'm hoping that these exchanges should provide some value, but I would rather have the exchanges and their audience get a more SPS tokens, but at a far smaller dollar value. That to me is like so much less of like a rock over our heads, right? Like I don't want them dumping $10 million. So even if we could afford it, 6 months down the road, it would literally be more than 10 times as expensive. It's probably 20 times more expensive to do later. And then when we pay it, it's likely to just fall on our heads. So I'd rather make sure that the dollar value is as small as possible and get it down and like do it sooner rather than later. Cause we'll also get the advantage of having more trading and more access and more people that can actually do this.
Yeah, and maybe let me clarify a couple parts, right? Like we're not looking at small exchanges, right? Like we're already on some pretty good exchanges. I mean, Huobi is one of them. And so we're looking at exchanges that are going to move the needle for the community, right? So we're not looking at, things that aren't in the top 10. Essentially, we want to focus on, you know, fairly large, can drive a fair bit of volume, especially to early tokens. And part of what Aggie mentioned, you know, some of these tokens might get dumped. I mean, like, we can't control what the exchange or what those marketing you know, promotions do. But what we are hoping is that this drives at least some new users, more access, and that the volume is significantly higher coming from their exchange than what could possibly be dumped, right? Which is on the high end, maybe a few $100,000 if we're talking about 20 million SPS, right?
Yeah, and are that 20 million, is that for like one listing, or is that a budget for multiple listings?
So it depends. You know, it's not necessarily for one listing, and there's nothing that's been committed, you know, as of yet. There are a few very strong exchanges that are providing very favorable terms right now that I've never seen before, and this is more, you know, in part bear market, in part recognizing the size and strength of the Splinterlands ecosystem and community, where they're waiving off essentially like listing fees, and it's just a marketing fee, or like things like this, right? Or waiving the deposit fee, things like this. You know, we're obviously, our goal is to stretch this as much as possible. It does get a little bit hard, obviously, as the token is around 3 cents, right? So if that grows a little bit, it increases the ability of what we can do with those dollars. But if it grows in line with Bitcoin price increasing, the exchange price probably is going up faster. So this is the challenge.
Yeah. And then I guess another thing, is the expectation that the money would transfer out of the DAO and go to your account first, or is it just like a pre-approval so that the foundation can spend it and we would put it directly to the exchange?
Yeah, so absolutely not going to me. It's a pre-approval, right? So, you know, once we have strong listings that we wanna go forward with, and we would still, you know, make sure that, you know, a number of senior members internally are aligned, then we would essentially move forward with using those tokens as part of that pre-approval, and it would go directly then to, you know, whatever exchange that is. Yeah.
Okay. So those are any other key thoughts that we ought to consider as we think through this proposal? You know, what did we miss anything, or anything else that you'd want to share with this?
I mean, I do think that this is very critical that we move forward on this, right? Like, if we don't move forward on this now, I mean, essentially we're going to be moving forward on it at some point, unless we're not ever getting new listings. And that's a big problem, right? So if we're not getting listings on any more top 10 going forward because we don't want to move forward as a community, I think we've got a really big challenge growing this ecosystem, and the value of SPS growth on you know, by leveraging some of that, you know, firepower from some of these exchanges.
Yeah. All right, guys. So you guys, everybody gets to make their own decisions with their own tokens. I'm certainly voting for this proposal. Like Ali has said, the prices that are being offered by exchanges now are some of the lowest amounts I have ever seen. These are some of the most favorable terms that I've ever seen. And, you know, I ultimately think that it's in the best interest of this community. But it's up to the stakeholders. It's up to the DAO. You guys get to determine what and how this operates. But I would encourage everybody that, you know, this isn't money that's going to Blockchain Founders Fund. This isn't money that's moving out of the DAO until it actually is like paying for exchange listings. And I think that it's in it, you know, it's as strong of a position as we'll get. And if we decide to do this later, which is an option, if it doesn't happen now and it happens later, then you guys need to expect that a far larger dollar value is going to go to these exchange listings, and it's going to cost in the likely 10 or potentially more than $10 million range. I've seen like, listing agreements that are like north of $20 million. And I would hate to, I don't know. I don't want to vote for something like that. That sounds terrible because I think a lot of it just gets dumped back on our heads. So it's up to you guys. You guys get to make the decision, but there are two parts to this. I wanted to make sure that you guys met Allie. You've met Ed before. You've met Andrew before. So now you get to meet Allie. So these are the core guys that make up our board and have been coming to meetings since 2019, helping us to make decisions. And then very specifically about why we're doing this now is that, we're past the point where Splinterlands can, there's a DAO. So, Splinterlands is not making these decisions. We won't make these decisions. It's going to go to the community. And you guys have to figure out what portion of this treasury do you want going to exchange listings. And I don't know other ways that this can happen. Maybe you guys can come up with a way, but if you want exchange listings to happen, when you ask when Binance, when Kraken, when, you guys ask us these questions, well, there has to be budgets and somebody has to be able to go sign and authorize it. And the person that's the head of that foundation is Allie. And as far as I know, there's nobody else that can like legally sign these things. So I don't know. Those are some of my initial thoughts. I guess last shot, Allie, anything else to add?
No, thank you so much, and let's hope we can resurrect this one and move forward.
All right, great. Well, I appreciate your time, Allie. Thanks for being here. Thanks for literally being part of this community for the past 4 years and helping to guide it. And I've learned a ton from Allie, and we wouldn't have SPS if it wasn't for Allie. So thanks for being here. Thanks for helping to propel our game, and thanks for meeting with us weekly to help us make strong decisions.
My pleasure.
Rock
Thanks
on.
so much.
That was Allie from Blockchain Founders Fund. Okay, so next up, another sort of like OG Haloed guest. We get ourselves a Jarvie from Peakmonsters. So Jarvie, how are things? You want to, if there's anybody here that doesn't know what Peakmonsters is, you just want to give like a 2-second reminder of what this thing is?
Peakmonsters been around since 2018. It's our initial idea was a place where people could save time, and get good information to save money and do all their transactions, including buy, rent, combine, like lock the cards, do all sorts of different actions on Splinterlands.
Rock on. All right. So you guys have, like, I just went through on all my accounts and I combined, I'm looking to get my cards ready for land. I went through and started combining everything. And, I'd say 85% of all the combining. And I just spent like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 hours last night doing this. I did it all through Peakmonsters. Peakmonsters is such a smoother experience than the Splinterlands site for some of these combinations and things that you do in bulk. Man, it's just, it's just incredible what we can actually get through. And the tools that you guys have made are pretty awesome. So I wanted to put in a personal thank you, but also personal advocacy that I use Peakmonsters all the time. And I think it's a great website. And apparently it just got better. Do you want to kind of talk us through kind of what you had this kind of epiphany of what you wanted and why you think it's so important? And maybe you can break down what the idea is, what the execution is. And once we know what you're doing, kind of tell us why it's so freaking cool to you or why you think it's so groundbreaking.
I'll start the other order because I do think it is groundbreaking. I think it's going to change the way it's going to change the game, I guess, in a way. And that's not just me being hype man because I come onto these things. I'm not as hype. I mean, I go to lunch with Tyler from Nifty Arcade and he's super excited and I don't get that way. But I do think this is the biggest change that Peakmonsters has ever made, our biggest feature. Not because we're going to, make a lot of money off of it, but because it's going to help the game so significantly. That's why I'm excited about it. So, and we've actually, it launched on Friday and there's been a bunch of people who are like, this is going to change a lot of stuff. So, yeah. And I can kind of walk through what it is so people visually see.
Yeah.
We launched a feature called Dex. So about a year ago, about a year ago, we had this idea. Around Splinterfest, we started teasing it, and then we got distracted by a bunch of things, cool things, like the Soulbound, the non-card market, the proposal stuff. So we have a couple other websites that we run, and we finally found time about 2 weeks ago to start working on it, and finished it on Friday. It's called Decks, and it's on Peakmonsters now at the top, and it says My Decks. And if you go to it, you have the ability to see quite a bunch of things. You want me to kind of walk through and give an idea in person of what's going on?
You got to tell us how the damn thing works so that we can understand it.
All right, so we integrated this throughout the entire website. So it's not just one page, but if you go over to your own collection, you have the ability to filter by decks. If you go into the rental page, we've also integrated decks into the rental page. It's also in the buy page. So if you're like, oh, these are the cards I like to buy, and you can filter it quick. But obviously, most people's main interaction is going to be on the decks page itself. And this is where you can go, and it kind of says it here, build your own or explore decks created by the community. And just in the 2 days that it's been around, hundreds of users have created decks already, and it's just going to grow kind of exponentially from there. And so you can go and explore basically the knowledge of all of these players that have been around for years, and what is it they like to play with? What is it they like to do? And then if you look at a deck, I'll look at one of this ones at this count. I was playing in bronze and made some decks. And so, yeah, let's see. Oh, I've got it at the top, probably. There it is. So I created a deck of all the ones that I was playing with bronze. And if you click on a deck, you can break it down, and every card is listed here. But one of the cool things is it will tell you, do you own this one? Is it playable? And if you don't have this one playable, over here on the rental column, I could click that button, and it will go onto the site, onto Splinterlands, and say, is this card still available? And it put it in the cart for me, and I can click rent, and it's rented. And I could do that with all those different carts, all those different cards. Boom, boom, and now I'm ready to play. Of course, I've got most of these already rented, but so that's the breakdown for each of the different cards. But at the top, it's kind of fun because you can see how much this deck would cost if I were to buy it, or how much it would cost if I were to rent the entire thing, all 60, 70 of those cards. You had a question, sorry.
Yeah, so how do I know if that deck is any good? Right? So I see a deck. What tells me that is a strong deck and something that I want to have access to? How do I know?
A big component of this is the kind of social aspect of it, the community aspect of it. We go into all decks, and you trust the fact that this one has been favorited by 27 different accounts, that this one may be popular. Also, you may recognize some of the players' names, Sadie or Off Grid Living. You have Kira 1995 in here, doing a lot of stuff for the Silver League. So we could filter and apply, and you see Kira in there. And then this is a kind of a pitch to the community out there, but like those that get really into making decks create really good quality, and they have people that trust them. And one would assume that those that are the top level players probably have some of the best ideas. We are tagging them with this pro designation, which you can also filter, the decks by pro, or you can just click on the name of a user and you will see all of theirs. You're like, I really like how this person thinks. And there's two different types of decks. That's an important part. There's a thematic one that goes up to 250 different monsters and summoners all inside of it. And then there's a lineup deck, which is just kind of like a regular battle deck. It's a, up to 7 cards with the summoner first, and the order matters. and it has a designation of which league, which elements, and maybe which rules it does well, if it's good for modern and wild. And so if you find yourself using maybe one of their thematic decks, then maybe you're also interested in seeing which lineups they play with that. Does that answer your question a little bit more?
Well, yeah, especially when you mentioned pro. So how do I become a pro? How do I get to be able to put up decks that, you know, have a little bit higher social weight of knowing that that's a good thing for a new player to start with, or knowing that like this is what high level champion play looks like?
That's a great way of putting it. Social weight. Yeah. So if you are in the leaderboards for any of the different splinters, we are definitely looking for bronze and then maybe some more silver, gold, and it seems like some of the champions are starting to filter in. But if you are interested and you're on the top of leaderboards, just contact me personally. And you know, assuming that you are willing and maybe you've already created a few decks, then we will add that designation. And then also top content creators. So like Bulldog also has this designation, and a couple other content creators that we've talked to. And as long as they, you know, catch the fire and want to create decks for their content creators. And that's one of the cool things. What I imagine is having the, you know, Splinterlands TV people or some of the YouTubers, when they're on a show talking about what they like to play, or there's a new edition out and they're like, here's the top 10, they can just quickly go in to the buy me and hit the build button. And maybe if it's like a top 10, they check on thematic and they're like, this is my top 10 Rift Watchers. And then they go into the editions here, they click on Rift Watchers, it makes it a lot easier, and they're like, well, these are my top 10. And they can share it publicly. And if they click that public button, and I'll delete this afterwards, but then it will go down, and then they can share. They click on this link, and then they can share it in their YouTube link or in their PeakD post or something to that effect. And people are like, oh, that's awesome. These are the 10 you should rent. These are the 10 you should buy for flipping. These are the 10 you should, you know, buy to rent out and stuff like that. So it's a really good tool for content creators. So we're looking at the top players, top content creators, but also anyone that has that creates a lot of decks that are just generally popular. So let's say, you know, Sadie has a bunch of decks that get really popular from their audience wherever they're at, or they're just like, man, these are really good. Then we would just try to reach out and say, Sadie, you know, we'd love for you to be a pro because it's obvious that people are very interested in what you're creating.
Okay, so let me see if I get this straight. Peakmonsters has introduced a new feature. One of the problems that players have is knowing what cards to buy or rent. This allows players to post different battle lineups or different whole team and whole deck preparation lineups that you might use, and they get to describe where these things are powerful in certain circumstances, and then community players kind of come through and upvote the ones that they like, can rent out the cards that they need to kind of fill in the extra positions. And this is a way to sort of like strategically modify your deck based off the counsel of others. Do you get a reward as a player or as a pro for like making these decks if people start using them or liking them? Is there a financial incentive, or is it just all social incentive that you're like seen as the big kahuna?
Well, it's only been around for 2 days. We do have some plans for the future, in particular for pros, but we still have a few other things that we're trying to develop. One of the things that people always ask is a one-click option to rent, and I've already started to use it, but we haven't like officially released it. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, something to that effect. But yeah, in the future, we hope to integrate that as long as we can figure out a good way to do that. And then, but yeah, like you're saying, like they can go in and study. I mean, a lot of games have that. Like if you think about chess, people go in and study games a lot. So people can come in here, study games. Or when you play, you have a moment of clarity sometimes when you're like, man, that was like the perfect team for this rule set, you know, like that was perfect. And then some other days you're like, I feel stupid today and I don't even know what to play. And you could just go back and go, what was it I played like a month ago? And just do a search and you're like, oh, that's right. So going in here to buy me, you could even hit import, copy a Splinterlands battle ID and just save this is a team I just played recently personally, and you could give it another name and you can or just keep it private for your own. But you're basically also, one of the big wins for everyone is that the more this information is out there, it's going to help new users know how to actually play this game because they're seeing the top ways of how to play it, not just trying to struggle to figure out what is a good deck and what is good things. They can actually see which ones are performing well or record when they have one that performs well.
Yeah. Well, we started losing a fair amount of your signal here, so I think I'm going to bring this to a close, but really excited for where this is going. I think helping new players figure out how to build a starter team or a starter deck and having that be kind of like a one click through experience rather than 50 million different little transactions. I think that's going to be really positive. Really appreciate the way that you help put that together. It's great to see that the community is already starting to use it. And hopefully you guys will go head over there and start looking at how can you improve your deck? What kind of lineups do you need? What are some of the best players using? And hopefully that can start driving some decisions for everybody. Any last words, Jarvie?
My fun experiences, I created a deck of all those bronze, and I wanted to see how long it could be to rent every single one of them and get from novice to silver. It took me 65 minutes to rent them all, and play every game. It's just like, if I had that like my nephew play, and they're like, I can't win a single game, and I'm like, here, this is what you do. These are the ones you rent. 17 cents, 17 US cents, and 1 hour of your time, and you should be in silver.
Nice.
So, and then they'll learn along the way because they're winning. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds great. Jarvie, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for putting out Peakmonsters. Thanks for constantly innovating on top of it. It's a wonderful service to the game and just fantastic. Thanks for doing that. Okay, let's move on to Harry and Investigator. Can you kind of tell us what's coming? It sounds like there's a lot of pieces that need to be built here, and there's a chunk coming this week, and then a whole bunch of stuff coming next.
Hello. So yeah, we've got a pretty big update tomorrow. Since last week was kind of a small one, a lot of stuff kind of rolled over. So let's see the big items for tomorrow. So Cryptomancer has been reworking some of the filters for the card market collection and brawl band selection to use the new set. So instead of seeing like Untamed, Dice, Chaos Legion, Rift Watchers, they'll just have like Untamed, and inside that it'll have Dice and Reward and all of the subsets. So basically they'll be able to filter everything by the era, kind of when the card backs. That's a better phrase. Something that people have been asking for a while. There's a couple gameplay updates. So we are making a change to Blast so that Dispel and Light Leech will no longer trigger on blast damage, just on the initial target. Scattershot is getting changed so that it will be able to target camouflaged monsters, which makes sense because they're not targeting at anything in particular. It should just have a random chance of hitting anyone. We're adding a clear option at the end of the mana cost filters on team creation. We're making some tweaks to chaos only brawls so that some rules don't come up that could lead to no cards being available. Basically, we're taking out the wands out and going the distance, since if you got Little League, and depending on which splinters would come up, you could potentially have no monsters. And we fixed a bug with the open/ghost card tournaments, where it was incorrectly doing checks for going the distance, wands out, and up close and personal rule sets, where it would treat the cards as level 1 cards, regardless of what level they actually were. So if you're playing with like Creeping Ooze or Crustacean King, it would incorrectly think that they did not have an attack when they did, and would give you a surrender for summoning an invalid team. So that's the gameplay changes. For tech modernization, the licenses and transfer pages are getting moved over to the tech modernization client. We added some checks on the land deed purchasing page, so it will now warn you on the UI if you do not have sufficient funds to buy these selected items. And when you select DEC, it will now show the actual pricing in DEC instead of USD. We made a change on the tech modernization pages for system notifications so that they will no longer go away after 10 seconds, which should match the old style of system notifications. They will stick around until you click on them, so you won't miss that the system is going down in half an hour if you're not watching the screen. We also cleaned up some issues with some of the guild messages when they showed up on tech modernization pages. General stuff. So we fixed a bug with the profile display where it was showing more titles than were actually available. We made a fix or update for Peakmonsters that the non-card market will now respect purchase authority granted to other accounts. We fixed some bad links on the other items where it would not go to the tech modernization version of pages. We're going to be adding a Chaos Legion end of the sale leaderboard, which should show up once we get into the last 1 million packs. We fixed a bunch of lore typos that got found during the past week. Cleaned up some of the text throughout the game where we were using splinters instead of elements, which is a creative change that had been made a little while back. And there's a bunch of performance improvements, particularly around how we bring up the cards and check what's available still on the market. So that's what's going up tomorrow.
Yeah. How are you hearing whispers of land yet in terms of like things are moving to QA servers and other pieces? Are we getting close to the big guys?
I know there's work being done on surveying land, though I don't believe it's up for internal QA quite yet. I think it's still pending some more creative assets, so you can ask Nate about that when you bring him on later.
Okay, well, we're getting there. I guess is there one of these that you think you're the most excited about, or that you think is kind of the biggest change for the community to work through?
I'm excited about the filtering changes, and this is just the first part of them. We're going to bring them around to the rest of the game, so it'll be a lot easier to sort down which cards you want to find. I guess, I don't know, there's a couple other items that we've got probably coming out next week that I can talk a little bit about if you want to get into.
It's a little spicy. We've already had a little bit of spice, but let's give a preview. This is not, it's not locked in stone, and we want to have Matt here to go talk about some of these things and why it's necessary. But there's going to be a change to the market. Do you want to explain one of those things?
Okay, well, there's going to be a few changes. We're hoping to finally get season rentals done for next week. It was originally slated for tomorrow, but we're going to move it back 1 week for further testing. So that should finally be out where you can rent the cards for the entire season. Also, something I talked about last week, we're going to be moving the hopefully Manuel open cards over to Tech Modernization. Again, was going to be tomorrow. We're pushing it back 1 more week for testing. The spicy thing that you're referring to is we're talking about making a couple changes to market. One thing is we're discussing potentially adding a listing fee of probably some amount, probably 1 DC, 1 credit to create a listing on the market. There's actually a bunch of code going out tomorrow to support that, but none of it's enabled yet. Matt should be putting out a post discussing it soon, but it's basically to cut down on spamming the market with price changes or canceling and relisting cards at different prices.
Yeah. So, one thing that we've had is like thousands of dollars, sometimes even $1,000 per day in terms of just like having to go process teeny tiny rental changes. So like if you're a player and a normal human, 1 DEC is like, 100th or 1,000th of a penny or something small like that. So if you're just doing tiny stuff, and renting a handful of extra cards, this should have almost no impact on you whatsoever. The people that this really has an impact on are like the giant whale accounts that are constantly spamming the chain in the market and fighting with each other over teeny tiny, very incremental changes to the rental prices that they're doing. And so because that stuff is getting spammed day and night by many different accounts, we said, okay, one of the things we need to do is put in like the tiniest of fees. So, it's not even meant to like totally prevent them, but there's gotta be at least one little like deterrent in here. At least sharing some of that cost. And just so everybody knows, that cost, I don't believe that's something that we Splinterlands are planning to like take. That's just all getting burned. So, if every day everybody wants to go spam a million different price changes, that's fine, but it's going to start taking DEC out of circulation if we do that. So, that it's not finalized. It's not even going live yet, but that's something that we wanted to start talking about that. I don't know. Makes me kind of excited for DEC. Makes me a little nervous knowing that I have one of the biggest accounts that rents, that I'm going to start paying some DEC to do that. But I make a ton of DEC, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Just, it's also another reason to sort of like have fewer level 1 cards lying around and doing armies of level 1 cards, and instead maxing your cards and having, far fewer listings that you're altering, rather than trying to move armies of level 1 cards by 0.001 DEC so that I can outprice Neil McSpadden, that sort of thing. Anything else you'd add to that, or any other changes that you think are going to happen to the market there?
I don't know how much alpha you want to give.
I think that's enough for now. Let's not get too spicy here.
Yeah,
we'll let Matt kind of launch the post, explain more details, and just kind of talk through some of that.
And yeah, a good caveat for everything, even all the stuff that we have queued up to go out tomorrow. Pending we don't find any issues today, when we start doing production testing before we bring the system back up, these things can always get pulled out, even though what we have planned to go out tomorrow is what I talked about.
Yep. Okay. Well, Investigator, thanks for coming on. Thanks for telling us what's going on. I think that's super helpful. and looking forward to seeing what gets live, and hopefully many blessings of a smooth update tomorrow. Sounds like there's a bunch going out.
Yeah, thank you.
Rock on. All right, let's get a WeirdBeard and let's go talk about there's more spice to go through. So we ain't done yet. Let's go start with the easy stuff. Come tell me about there's a couple fixes that went live. So what can players expect out of guilds and tournaments? And then there's a couple new things that are coming up. So kind of walk us through the easy, non-controversial stuff, and let's build our way up to the next set of spice here.
Cool. So the easy part is that we had issues for random fleas in the ghost card tournaments for whatever reason. It was found out because cards at a certain level would be treated at the wrong level when they wouldn't have an attack then. So moving forward, ghost card tournaments should not see those fleas anymore since the push is being or the fix is being pushed out. That's a super easy one. We also had over, what was the final number? I think the final number was something like 343 people entered into this ghost card tournament on Friday, which is awesome. It was our, another really successful gladiator tournament. People have loved these tournaments so far. And so we're continuing to keep gladiator tournaments on Fridays at 3 p.m. EST. So if you're interested, you can compete and test out. Sometimes they're ghost card tournaments. Most of the time they're owned card gladiator tournaments. Outside of that, because of the issues that were happening because of the fleas, we weren't sure if it was an error in like just ghost card tournaments or all tournaments. So we don't have any tournaments scheduled for today because we don't want to make them if people are just going to run away from them. But tournaments will go live again tomorrow, and you'll be able to see later on today when that all notification goes out here in the Discord. You're going to be able to get pinged as soon as we finish putting up the next week or two. So that's
are you planning on building the next week or two? Are there any holdups to that, or tournaments are getting built and things are normal enough that we're going forward?
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure again, like, why make a whole bunch of tournaments if people would just enter them and they get mad because they were broken. So we double checked. We had the dev team come in on the weekend, which was awesome. And thank you very much to them for supporting on it. But we should be good to go. So we're making them here in the next 45 minutes to an hour. You'll see tournaments start to go up.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Anything more spicy that we need to get into?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the community leader results?
Oh yeah. Let's do that. But I guess let's start with what is a community leader? What happened thus far, and where are we kind of at in that story?
So community leader is not it's not a scary position. People were thinking that, this was all of a sudden installing Emperor Palpatine style vote, but it's way more about getting people to be able to coordinate between us as a worker team and the community to know like, hey, this is what not only the community is talking about, but when we do these community proposals, we've run into some brick walls, and we've talked about it in the past about making sure that when we make a proposal, it's done in a certain way that makes it so that we're not like handcuffed, right? Like we don't want people saying, here is a problem, here's how you solve it, here's the color or the shade of color that you need to use on the banner. Like that's very, very specific. So instead, we're trying to help coach the community into writing better proposals using, like give us a problem and a suggestion on how to solve it. And then we go about on how to actually do it. So we've had 2 rounds of voting so far. First one, we allowed people to nominate any 5 people, up to 5 people, to be able to get onto that final ballot. We took the top 10 of those, made it so that people were able to vote one time for their favorite person, and that's the only vote that they got. And these are the top 5 people that are our community leaders. Simsahas, Gene Poole, Moriarty 95, Dave McCoy, and Shnigecko. All were the top 5 voted there.
Simsa Haas is certainly the saltiest of all of those. Looking forward to getting that one for a while.
Well, listen, I appreciate it. I always say, because I hold like a lot of, like intimate groups of people and we talk and go over ideas and stuff like that. And it's always, I don't want to just listen to people that kiss my ass. Like if you think I suck, tell me, because I got to step up my game. You know what I mean? So if it was all people that were non-salty, it'd look a little weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be Salt. I mean, Dave, I love Dave, but Dave and I have gone back for like years.
Yes.
But we finally, I think we figured out a good balance of like, he knows I'm not just going to accept everything that he says. He doesn't accept everything I say. But we at least, I think that we understand each other's position a lot more. Looking forward to working with Gene. Gene just having like a business guy on that list. That sounds awesome. My favorite people to work with are just like the pure business of like, let's get this thing done because it's going to be good, whatever. Shnigeko, I've had some interactions with, and Moriarty. Obviously these are all like people that names I recognize, folks that are constantly in here. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but like you said, it's a nice mix of people that get to haggle and salt me for the next, I don't know how long.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is that this isn't a Supreme Court appointment. You know what I mean? Like, it's not for life. We're going to rotate every couple of months. So, people that are doing well and still interacting with the community, then they should be able to be back on there. If it's somebody who, finds that it's not something that they want to do, or we want to get a different voice, like, we're going to be able to put more people on here, because this is just a tool for us to use to organize the community better, right? Like, when we're kind of hand in hand with the community's looking for this, here's what we're looking for. Everybody knows everything, and it has like that clear idea of what's going on. That's when we, get stuff done.
And some of this, I think, just gets morphed into the like witness thing. Eventually some people are going to want witnesses that are really technical and can help Splinterlands code and do more things with the validator nodes and grow that. And some people are going to be kind of the social folks, and we'll see a mix of all these people. And, some of them they'll be here for different reasons. But I think that community role eventually goes to the kind of elected witness role. And those will be the folks that Splinterlands interacts with the most, because they'll literally have the most stake backed in the system.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's also, again, I just want to point out, I love talking to players that are a little salty and a little, you know what I mean? Like a little bearish on stuff at all times. Even after sound, when a YouTube streamer, he goes by Papa Bear sometimes. Like, that's what you need. You need to be able to have that balance in your life, because if you don't, it's just it never benefits anybody to have, a bunch of yes men around you.
Yeah. So I'm never going to get like a team of yes men for anything in crypto. I just I've just resigned myself to being like a salt mine operator. That is like what CEO here is. In the bear markets, it's salt mine operator. In the bull markets, it's chief FOMO officer. And it's like, let's have these two wild extremes of everybody hates my face and everybody is, they always hate my face, but
yeah.
What are you going to do? Okay, so we have these new leaders. Do they now get to just run the business? Can I like hand this thing off to them and I'm done? Like, what do you see them doing?
Well, a lot of it is for, like I said, allowing them to help craft proposals with community members that want it, right? Like, instead of being like, because a lot of the things that I get reached out to about the community proposals are people who have very in-depth technical questions that I can't answer. So we have to go and get the people that can answer it, right? And bring them in. And then we spend all this time even answering fundamental questions of like, can this thing be done? That it's like it would be one step too far to go, okay, and then now here's also how you should like frame it so that we can do something about it. Like, it's that extra step of training people up. Community leaders are going to help with that, and then they're also going to help with like one-on-one sit downs and like in small groups, these like discussions, to be able to talk about, hey, what are players saying that they want? You know what I mean? I try to be out there as much as I can, but it's I've learned that there's still pockets of this community that I am not involved in, you know what I mean? Like, in a one-on-one basis. So while I hear a lot of the top level, let's talk about some of these other things, like new player experience is something that popped up in Mav chat over the weekend of people talking about it and, wanting focus on it. Well, okay, we need to find out new player experience. What does the community think that they want? And then we balance that with what we want, and we use that to make new stuff.
Yeah, that new player experience is totally on my radar to go shove at you and these leaders and be like, figure this out. right? Like Matt's going to have his ideas. I have a handful of ideas. Team members will have ideas, but like this is not new player experience is not like here's the 2 things we need to do and then we're done and set for life. It's this like ongoing like set of changes that we have to constantly tweak and make better. So that should be like almost a standing committee. It might as well be those leaders, you, but I don't know. We need more eyeballs on it, and we need to start speccing things out of what is the lowest hanging fruit that'll give us the biggest bang for the buck. You know, one of the things that I liked about Nifty was that like that was a huge change that required 0 coding. I just had to sit there and give up like a weekend or 2 and click buttons over and over to make these decks. But that took no dev time. So that to me was like an extreme win. I mean, you already have freaking Metanomy coming in. Like literally within a week, we get a freaking guild entering the space because of this. Like that's a feather in the cap right there for that. But it's also just so huge because there's no dev work. So like what kinds of things that can we do that are completely social and community? What can we do that's code? What's it like? What do people even have in mind for this? You know, there's a fair amount of stuff that we have to go through, and but it's on my personal radar to try to get you involved in that and sort of do it the way that you've done tournaments and brawls to take on new player experience as well and get like a crap ton of community feedback, because I think the community will have a lot of input in terms of what they want here.
Yeah, and again, like Nate's pulling his hair out. You can't see him. He's off screen, just going, being like, "We have so many ideas." Like, yes, there's a lot of things to be done, but one of the other things that we're trying not to do is to do a half-ass project, right? Like, if you're going to do new player experience, you have to plan beginning, middle, and end, and know how you get there, and not just make it up as you go along. And it's not that we were doing that before, but it's, you know, we now have multiple teams going through stuff with fine-tooth combs. You can't, you know, you have to get everybody on the same page and just have a, you know, common understanding of what's happening.
Right on. All right. Anything else for this week?
New tournaments going up within the hour. Again, community leaders will, you know, we're going to be making and involving them in some posts coming up in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye on that if you're interested in learning more about having them help you out on community proposals. And again, Gladiator tournaments fixed moving forward. Thank you, everybody, for entering into the one the previous week.
Rock on. Okay, let's get our creative dude up here, Mr. Nate. I think Mr. Nate is going to have some thoughts. I guess the big one is this here Red Panda. Is there any Red Panda stuff that you want to share today? Everybody, I guess I've gotten 15 minutes of Red Panda posts.
Yeah, it seems that way. So yeah, I know going in that you were going to, just like the rest of the world, was going to ask about the stats, and Matt is of course not here. And usually I defer to Matt. I'm like, well, you know, Matt's the guy. So as we were starting the town hall, I was frantically messaging Matt. Matt, I know Aggie's going to make me say the stats on live stream right now. Is that okay? Or what am I going to do? And so he's like, yeah, no problem. We can share some stuff. So, you know, but let me preface by saying that, first of all, everyone's been calling this character Red Panda. I mean, which is great, but that's like, you know, that's like calling me, you know, Mexican guy. It's like, you know, I have a name, dang it. So, so let's go ahead and unleash the actual official name for this character. Byzantine, of course, as you all know, is the one who helped design out this character, and we finally came to a name that he's happy with. So I introduce you to.
Dun, 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 dun.
There you go, Lily Shieldpaw.
Lily Shieldpaw.
Yeah, and
the fierce dragon summoner.
Yeah, so you know, I think, you know, whenever Byzantine wins a contest to design a character, the creative team is like, oh my goodness, okay, what's he gonna ask for this time? Usually something cute, something furry, which is fine. You know, I know a lot of us may be like, no, this needs to be a gritty, hardcore fantasy, lots of blood and guts and killing and screaming. And well, I mean, you know, there's room for everything, including the cute, including the fuzzy wuzzies. So, and I think the comment was made late last night, early this morning in Maps chat about like, how is this a dragon summoner? And I think it was Cryptomancer who made the point, which is correct from a lore perspective. A magic user does not need to be an actual dragon to utilize dragon magic. And if for those of you guys who like to follow the lore, dragon magic is rather unique in the world of Splinterlands. Whereas most of the elemental energy is sucked up from the battle mage from their surroundings, such as, let's say I'm using fire magic. Maybe I use the heat from the bodies surrounding me, get some heat and kind of use that. Or maybe I'm sucking the moisture out of the air to kind of create some water magic. Well, where the heck does dragon magic come from? Well, either you're making nice with a dragon, you're in close proximity to a dragon, or there's those who go out slaying dragons, and maybe you have a dragon's claw hanging as an amulet around your neck, and you kind of draw upon that innate magic that dragons have. So however Lily got it, I think that the lore is going to kind of like make reference to the Byzantine kitty, a celestial being that somehow trains these animals who have gained sentience and awareness in the ways of dragon magic. So when we have the lore ready for you and it's released, and you guys get a chance to read that, then I highly encourage you guys to check it out, because it's going to be cool. And then of course, I know I'm delaying it. I'm just kind of like getting as much as I can out of this. I'll go ahead and find the stats here for you. I think the stats are going to surprise a lot of you. In fact, if you're like me, you're going to look at this image I put in, and you're going to take a beat. You're going to take a pause, and you're like, huh. And then a few seconds later, I think it's going to sink in what it actually means. So as I do this, big props off to Ghosty BG on YouTube chat earlier. I think he made a good guess. So
Whoa.
There you go. You have you're basically giving camouflage to the entire team. And if you're like me, I looked at that, I'm like, that doesn't seem like a big deal. But then think about it. Think about every glass cannon, super powered character that you did not put on your team because you thought, they're not going to last more than a round. I better put someone who's a little more durable, right? Think about the damage you could do here. Now, if you're like me, I've always been kind of partial to backstabbing teams, those sneakers, fill up the whole team with sneakers. Imagine them sneaking to the backside to go stabby, and then suddenly there's nothing there. They're all hiding in the bushes, and the only thing you see is the tank. So you're like, oh, okay, and they're rushing off to the tank. That does definitely give Conquered Jasek some, for those who were like deferring to Yodin, you're thinking, well, geez, Conquered Jasek is looking pretty nice right now. But there's balance, right? There's balance, because I imagine, like, you think of Scattershot and you think, wow, it's blindfolded in a dark room, just shooting and hoping you hit something. You don't get to have that focused DPS where you like do all the damage to one guy. Okay, he's off the field. Do all the damage to the next guy. He's off the field. That precise, optimized DPS, you can't get that with Scattershot. So it's like, I'm really curious to see the battles that play out with this. It should be rather interesting to see how these mechanics balance out. Now, having said all that, keep in mind, everything's subject to change. These are the stats that we think we're going to do. We still got to go to Mav's test server for testing. We got to see how things pan out. And as you guys have already seen, we've hit Mav's test server plenty of times and been forced to make some tweaks after we see you guys play with the cards and see what it actually means. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm curious when the dust settles, if these stats stay the same, what kind of games people are going to have.
Yeah, that's a fun update. I was definitely not thinking camo, but I like the camo triage and a little bit of health with the dragon team, like with this weird little panda on it. Just what a funky little card.
No,
that looks like fun. That looks like a meta-changing, fun little card to go sneak in here. I like this.
And to celebrate, let me. I think I have. Here it is. Here's a wallpaper with a battle mage channeling the spirit of Lily. So there you go. A battle mage playing with the cards and using Lily as the summoner.
Okay, so now that we did Red Panda, the first is when Panda stats. All right, we got through that. Next is when land. And I think some of that really comes down to some creative assets and what we're putting together. Like, are we you might be in a unique position to think through, are we going to make Q1? Are we going to be able to deploy land surveying? Is that happening this quarter? Are we going to make it in March?
So far, so good. So right now I've shared stuff like this in the past where we're looking through the filters. We're looking through, the real challenge is the fact that maybe I was a little too ambitious, but I like to think we're going to pull it off. And when I say ambitious, I meant that I wanted to give players the opportunity to see all of the data in map view, in grid view, and in list view. I thought that aspect of things was important to make sure that all types of landowners, no matter how many plots you own, get the information and the data in the way they want to, whether they're visual learners or whether they're spreadsheet gurus or whatever type of player you are. I wanted to be able to meet your needs, right? And so I really gave the challenge to the design team. Look, can we do this? Let's see if we can pull this off. And then once you factor in just the sheer complexity of how many different combinations of land you could end up with, and trying to figure out all the sorting and filtering and making sure that it consistently displays properly across all three views, it's a lot, but I think we're pulling it off. I think we're doing it every single day. I see us getting closer and closer and closer to the finish line. Currently, our existing sprint, our development sprint, ends at the end of this month. And so essentially, I see things being on track. I think that at the end of the sprint, we're going to be able to hand off to engineering the final specs for how this is all going to work for the survey phase. And so then they're going to spend next month going ahead and going to town, implementing and coding all the stuff that we're giving them. And that should allow for some time for testing. So, probably on the MAV test server, they'll have an opportunity to play with stuff, give some feedback before it actually goes live. So far, yeah, end of quarter one, we're feeling pretty good. And then immediately following up with that, I know that you made a little announcement post the other day, Aggie, regarding 1.5. What is that? What does that mean? And everyone's waiting with bated breath. Hey, tell us more. Well, we haven't quite figured it out yet. But over the next few weeks, in parallel with finishing up surveying, we do intend to try as hard as possible to make it so that once you've surveyed your land, you're not just staring at it for a few months. Because the next phase of land, which is construction and harvesting and all this stuff, there is so much more involved with that. So it might take us a few months, right? But we don't want players to go a few months just, okay, I surveyed it. Now what? They're just staring at their plot like, what do I do now? Oh, well, come back in a few months. I mean, that would suck. So what we're doing is we're trying to figure out, is there any low-hanging fruit that would not derail the roadmap, that will not delay phase 2.0, but still gives the players value, something to do, something to get out of owning land. And so that's what we're trying to bring to you, and we'll get more details to you guys as soon as we have them.
All right, so that's land and Panda. Any other major ones that I need to have on the radar that we need to talk about before we end this section? Any other big ones that are coming out?
Let's see. I will say, let's see, do I have I've shared stuff like this before, but we're making progress, and just like I said, we're nearing the end of this current sprint, at which point not only are we handing off some stuff for survey, but we're finalizing and handing off what the engineering will need for the advanced version of set filters. So, I mean, for those of you guys who, what is that? What? It's me with a beard. Someone is posting a picture of me with a beard. Okay, well, I mean, I guess I could grow. Oh, that's a WeirdBeard. It's like me and WeirdBeard mashed together.
It's a Natebeard? I think it's Natebeard.
Yeah, I guess so. So this is an image progress being made on the set filters and how that's going to work. And I think that, I think people are underestimating what it's going to mean once we get that. Now, Cryptomancer is putting MVP version of that into the game quicker, sooner rather than later. But as soon as that's into the game, then we're going to start hopefully working on a more advanced version, which will really allow people to fine tune their searches and their sorting and their filtering. So I'm looking forward to that. I would like to point out that some of what was explained earlier, you guys have been bouncing around all town hall, and I can't help but mention that as we talk about exchange listings, and as we talk about the new user experience, and as we talk about land and the sinks that represents, I want people to think, because a lot of us think in such a linear fashion, which is normal, that's natural, where you think, well, this is more important than that. Let's do that first. And then, or this is more important. No, and there's a debate and saltiness and controversy of what's more important or what should happen first, or now's not the time for this, not until these other pieces are in place, right? And so there's usually a lot of debate that I see in Discord about that. And as someone who's kind of like behind the curtain, working on the UX and the UI, and there's multiple teams and all these things running in parallel, I will let the community know that lots of times the stars need to be in alignment, as we all know. The ducks all need to be in a row in order to oftentimes make things really successful. So maybe a listing is one piece of a puzzle, just like new user experience is another piece of the puzzle. And just like having massive sinks that bring up everyone's value on their assets is another piece. And maybe just one of these things is nice, but not good enough. You really need all these things together. And the only way to make them like happen together is we literally kind of have to work them in parallel. All of them have to be planned in advance, and they all have a significant amount of runway. So if it takes a few months to do one and then you start the other one, well, crap. Now your ducks aren't in a row anymore. The market's changing, everything's flip-flopping all over the place. So it takes a lot of skill, and sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes it takes luck in order to get things to sync up right at the right exact time that you need them to. But I will say that the team is extremely talented, and the community is probably one of the most intelligent, passionate communities I've ever seen. I mean, I have a healthy amount of Discord servers for other games and other communities, and other people play other stuff too. And I must say, the Splinterlands community is like top notch as far as I'm concerned. And then once you add in the proposal system and now the community leaders who are going to help advocate and facilitate a lot of these proposals going through, I mean, the next few months are going to be exciting as all heck. So just keep that in mind, guys. Like, hey, let's learn to juggle, because that's what we got to do. If we want to like be ready for that next bull market, if we want to go insane, then I think we have the right people for it, not just on the team, but in the community as well. I think we're going to knock this out of the park.
It's not just that, but like, if somebody says, hey, look, this is more important than the other thing, we can't just necessarily stick more devs on it and have it go faster. You can't make a baby in 1 month by getting 9 people pregnant, right? Like you have to wait the full 9 months. You gotta go do that right. So it's the same kind of thing here, where like, if I took the people that were working on season rentals and stuck them on land, I don't think that gets us land any faster. If I took the people that are working on, the next airdrop and I put them on land, that doesn't get land here any faster. We have all these people. We have like 16, 17 people on the enhancement team that are making all these adjustments and changes and tweaks and adding new features to the game. And it means that we can work on like multiple things simultaneously. It's not, hey, get 16 people all working on one thing, go finish that and go on to the next one. It's more like, let's get 8 teams of 2 making 8 separate pieces together. And that's the way that, we have nice things, because you don't really get the benefit by having like 4, 5, 6 people all working on one feature. It's just at some point you have too many cooks in the kitchen.
No, definitely.
Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to share?
No, just that we're rocking and rolling. We're excited. I know your guys are excited. This is going to be a fun year. I think it's going to, in fact, I would hazard to say, knowing what I know and seeing what I see, that as salty and as bearish as people have been, I think this might be the funnest year yet.
Yeah,
so I think it's
totally.
gonna be cool.
Yeah, I think we're still coming out of the bear. People haven't recognized that we're totally out of the bear, and maybe we're not. Maybe we're going down to 10K. Maybe 5K is in the cards. That might happen. Bitcoin can do whatever. But I've been enjoying the nice little hive pump going up to 48 cents, seeing like a 20% rise in the price of hive last week. That's pretty good. I don't know. Things look like they're going to be okay. We have the next Fed meeting minutes in just 2 days, so maybe they will ruin everything. J Powell likes to throw economic bombs at America right now, so that's still possible. But so far, I can tell you that January is so much better than December, and February has been a pretty nice month too. So I don't know. Nate, thank you for your thanks for your insights. Thanks for just talking about the process and the bear, not the bear, the what is that? It's panda, red panda.
Oh, Lily Shield Paw is the official name. We got so used to calling her Red Panda, but yes, Lily is her
Lily
name.
Shield Paw. All right. Well, guys, there you have it. Here's some creative stuff, and it sounds like we're on track for land. All right. I think my next move here is to go through some of these preset questions. And I don't have Matt or Cryptomance. Oh, damn it. Ron is totally busting my chops. We got to go do Splinterlands TV. Thanks. I didn't have that up. I didn't have the set list up. Ron, other than me flubbing that, how are things?
Hey, you're fine. Hey, things are going great, guys. I don't know if you guys heard about anything, but
There's what, FOMO February? Is that what you
we got
want
a
to
little
talk
thing
about?
called FOMO February going on. And I gotta
How
say,
would you describe it as going? Are people FOMOing into like watching these shows? Have you seen an uptick in the number of people that are hanging out?
the FOMO is real. It is definitely real. People have been going there, winning tons of cards. We actually just released, in the efforts of full transparency, we released all of the winners of FOMO February for the first 2 weeks. The list takes a little bit to compile, so we're going to do this bi-weekly. And so right now, if you go to the official announcements in the Splinterlands TV Discord, you will see a Google sheet that has all of the winners and how many times they've won. We also will be releasing the rest of that sheet at the end of February, and we might even be doing something for March.
So how has this impacted viewership? What's happened as a result of this?
I mean, it's about a 3 to 4 times increase in viewership.
Yeah,
Like
that
steady.
sounds pretty good.
Yeah, so I fully expect by the end of February, we are going to be partnered with Twitch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of sounds like a big deal. Like we
Um,
just did this for like some promotional like giggles, and we get a Twitch partnership out of it. That sounds amazing.
Well, so on Twitch, there's a few different tiers. Like there's just a streamer, which is like regular streamer, and you don't really have like many perks except for the ability to stream to your audience. Then there's affiliate, which like puts you up into a different echelon, and it gives you like things like emotes and different options that you can use. And then there is the partner, which gives it completely it gives you all the benefits of that Twitch has to offer.
Wow. I mean, that's a good month, right? Like that's exactly what we would want to have happen.
Absolutely.
Okay, so like how many people are attending a show right now? Like these days on average?
It's about I think 83 is our average right now.
All right, and that's up
Yeah.
from what, 40 or something, or was it less?
So we were averaging about 40, and then it kind of started dwindling down a little bit. And then now we're like about 83, 90 is kind of where we're at right now.
I mean, that sounds pretty healthy. What about number of followers on there? How many followers does the channel have?
I actually didn't have that pulled up, but I believe it's about 2,500 right now. Let me look real quick. So it's not too hard to 2,700. Okay. So we've actually jumped up a couple of hundred in this past few weeks.
Yeah, ticking up. The
Yeah.
start is the hardest. That's my experience. Do you think
So-
it'll be easier to attract other like bigger streamers if we're partners? Does that make any difference to that? What do you think?
So it does put us into a completely different category, and I think that the algorithm doesn't prefer partners. It just prefers butts, seats filled, people watching. And the more we can do that, the better it is for recommendations for, for getting people who have never heard of Splinterlands, getting it put in front of them. So maybe they won't click it, but it would be like something there that's going to constantly kind of nag at them, and then eventually, it's going to tie in with all the other marketing stuff we're doing.
All right.
So, Cybix, I've seen you, or I don't know how you pronounce your name, but I've seen you put that on there a couple of times. We've actually had a really long conversation in DMs about the fairness of the bots. So that is one of the concerns of a few people have raised up, not just him, but I'm picking on him because he put a little thing in the chat. Says that it's a closed community which gives cards to guildies and each other mainly. And as you can look at the list, that is absolutely not true. And I make the streamers use a specific tool that guarantees fairness. So, I'm not quite sure where you're getting that from, but I don't really like, I really don't like FUD being spread about it because we worked really hard to ensure fairness with this.
Yeah. Our goal is not to just reward like a handful of people. Our goal is to go spread this community far and wide, get as many people, and that requires us to act ethically and grow our game. Let's switch over to doing like a couple of the shout outs. Let's get some folks in here. So Get Good, we got Val Kyrie, Boom Bust, Mango Mayhem, Walk the Grid, Channel Magnetic, Gentle Pusa, M. Howie, Liberty Guy, Off Grid, and Sundaram. So those are your folks that are getting their Splinterlands TV shout out. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for being a part of the community. Thanks for helping to grow our channel and interacting and hanging out with the folks. Hopefully you guys have won some cards.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being part of this community. And we do have a clip of the week. Now, this one right here, I got to say, WeirdBeard, pay attention to this one. I don't know if you're still here, WeirdBeard, but pay attention to this one because if you're looking for a caster who, to do some play-by-play stuff, well, we might have your guy.
10 minutes before we pick the winner. So, guys, if you want to participate in the giveaway, make sure to answer our text prompt. And there you go, Dark Shadow with the Daemon chart in front, hitting all of them with the blast ability on Sneak Monsters and Opportunity Monsters. Have the advantage here. Mid-Dampir at the back, getting all the help she wants, and that side barter protecting Dark Shadow from the blast ability. Daemon chart with the trample. 3 cards are down. 4 cards are down. Now 5 cards are dead because of the trample and the ram paging Stampede rule sets. Dark Shadow win an amazing trample win.
That's the best. That's the best. If you want to win, that's the way to win. The freaking 4 kill, 5 kill trample. Like, yes. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
So anyway, that was our clip of the week for this week. Guys, I want to encourage you, keep making clips of our streamers. Go vote. Even if it's your own clip, vote for your own clip. You just use this Splinterlands TV emote, and that is a vote for that clip. The top five voted ones are the ones that we pick the clip of the week winner from, and all top 5 win a prize. So guys, go put your hat in the ring, get to go vote on your favorite ones, and maybe you'll be the clip of the week for next week.
Rock on. Okay. Well, Ron, thanks for being here. Thanks for getting all these folks watching our stream. Hopefully it keeps growing and we see new people, new faces, and that Twitch partner sounds pretty awesome. Kudos on that.
Absolutely.
That was a successful promotion.
Stay tuned for more announcements. We've got some big stuff in the pipes, and you guys don't want to miss that.
Okay. So now that I have not continued screwing everything up, we're going to go to some of these questions. GLG Town Hall, any confirmation about the next GLG Town Hall? Matt, the GLX Army needs you in the next Town Hall. So I don't know when the next one will be, and Liam's not here. I don't know. WeirdBeard, do you happen to have a date? I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Yes, no, we do not have a date. That would be a chatter question.
Yeah, that's what I thought. When Chatter wasn't able to make this, hopefully he'll be on the next one and we can go poke him then. With a lot of alpha beta cards supposedly going to work on land, would you consider removing alpha beta phrase and brawls and alpha beta tournaments? Otherwise, we have a chance to see them empty. So I think this is great. I mean, like if you want to go put those cards away, then maybe they're mining for SBS, or maybe they're getting your wood, or maybe they're helping you to make a certain item or NFT. But that I like the push and pull of, here are some rewards for keeping them in battles, and here are some rewards for keeping them on land and doing other things. To me, that's great. That's not like a flaw in the system. It's, here's all this utility, and you have to make decisions around how you want to deal with it. If the alpha phrase and beta phrase become unpopulated, and you just refuse to put your alphas on land, and you win everything as a consequence, then that's great. And if everybody keeps them in land, and if everybody keeps them fighting and you put them on land, and you're able to earn more of the individual resources because of it, that's great. I mean, I want you guys competing over this stuff. So I don't see us like taking away those thralls. Maybe WeirdBeard, do you have a different thought on that? Would you see different phrase going away because monsters can work on land?
I mean, the issue is that, yes, we already have kind of like a select audience that's competing in those, right? The only thing is, we don't know how many are actually going to do it. And even if we do that, we still want to try to have them, I think, available for people to be able to compete in. I guess that's kind of a question. I don't know how many are actually going to go to land. I mean, I would assume a lot, but we don't want to guess, right? Like, we want to know.
Will soulbound reward cards be workable on land? I haven't gotten a final answer from this. I imagine so, but let's go. We'll have to wait for Matt and the white paper before that comes out. I think the main thing will be, if they are able to be workable on land, they'll only be able to workable on your land. Is a card still playable in gameplay, or is a card busy on land? The card would be busy on land, so you can't both be battling and be working land. You have to pick one. Will plots in the same tract have an advantage over in the same region or territory? Let's wait for the white paper to come out. They're not really supposed to have advantages over each other. It's probably more convenient to keep them all in the same region, just so that you can get it all in one region view. But I don't think that it's like massive production pieces. But again, I would encourage you to keep all your things in the same region. Mobile app. The Splinterlands smartphone app is quite outdated. Many players now like to play on applications for their smartphone. Playing from the web on smartphones is a bit limiting. Are there updates on developing and updating a Splinterlands mobile app? Nate, you're kind of probably the most intimately linked to that. My thought is, we are doing all this tech modernization to make it so that we can run mobile apps more easily. Maybe Investigator, you want to add something to this too, but until such time, it doesn't really make any sense to put effort into the mobile app. But once tech modernization is done, and once the website's ready, then we sort of have one app to maintain, not a Splinterlands web-based thing and a mobile app. Either of you guys want to chime in?
Well, I would say that is exactly the strategy right now. And it makes a lot of sense, because if you have X number of resources in the company, do you guys really want half the resources of the company just duplicating the same thing as the other side of the company for purposes of getting it on two different platforms? On the other hand, I will say, I personally am a really big fan of the idea of a Unity-based native battle experience. Maybe it doesn't have all the bells and whistles from the DeFi perspective, and all the tokenomics and being able to do what you can do on the website, for virtue of maybe no other reason other than getting it on the app stores without all the issues and complexities that go along with trying to get a blockchain app on the app store. If we could But I wouldn't say that now's the time. I would say that, you know, once the bull market is back and running and we're in full swing and we have the time and resources to put towards that, or to contract someone to do that, then by all means. I know I would love to see it, but you're right. I agree. I would agree that the strategy that makes most sense right now is just get everything responsive, so that we're just, you know, developing once and letting it respond appropriately to the correct screen size.
Investigator, what percentage of the way through tech modernization do you think we are? Are we 5% done, 50% done, 100% done? I know that there's a lot of screens, so it might be hard to ballpark, but you know, if you had to pick where we are in a yard line, where would you say it is?
Maybe 20-25%. There's a couple of big sections we've got to do, like battles and tournaments and guilds. But we're getting there. You know, more and more of the different top nav buttons are going over to the next.splinterlands.com instead. So
when battles, tournaments, and brawls are done, is that when we shift over to having a responsive web ready or mobile ready website, or is there still like a lot more stuff to be done other than those three?
those are the big three. There's a couple other pages like the about section and like gameplay and little what-ofs, but once we get those done, it'll be pretty much, you know, those are the big things we need to get through to get onto the new UI fully.
When, like, do you think that's Q2, Q3, Q4 next year? Any guess based off of the timing that we've already been doing, or like how quickly we've been able to knock these things out?
I'm hoping this year. Some of that depends on how much rework we end up doing. If we're going to do Battles 2.0 when we do tech modernization, or we're just going to copy what we've got now over to the new client. So there's definitely still some back and forth with creative and discussion on, you know, how we're going to modernize the pages. But I'm hoping by we'll say 3, we'll be pretty far along with a lot of that.
And when do we need all of that? Like, what if it's just battles? Can we start by having a responsive website that's just the battles? I mean, we sort of already have that now, but maybe it would reflect more of the mobile experience than what we're currently doing.
We could certainly look at that. That's going to be something for Nate and Matt to talk through and prioritize. But I did, you know, the Battles 2.0 stuff for the people that were at Splinterfest is pretty cool looking, and I'm hoping we can get that out, you know, sooner rather than later. But take some time.
Yeah, I mean, do we? Yeah, that's. I guess this is like a quintessential problem for this business. If you want to understand like weird decisions or difficult decisions that we have to make, it's stuff exactly like this. There's not a right answer. There's not a wrong answer. It's just, what do we want to do? And it would be something like, do we want to spend the time and effort to recode exactly what's there in the battle system to go work in this updated code base so that it can work in the mobile, but knowing full well that any time that we do that is going to be wasted time as soon as we get into Battle 2.0 and have to redo the whole damn thing anyways? Or do we just build the Battle 2.0? And, you know, there's not a right answer. There's not a wrong answer. It's just something like, you know, you have to look at all the other priorities and you'd say, oh, well, if it takes us 10 minutes, yeah, of course you just do it one way and then do it the next because it's super short. And if it's something like, well, each one of those will take you 2 years, then you're like, oh, well, I don't know that I want to spend 2 years of our life coding something that we're about to get rid of 2 years later. So, you know, all these things are, there's not a yes or no. It all depends on moving variables and best guesses. And, you know, and then it's also like, well, how big is the spec for Battles 2.0? Is that a big change? Is it a small change? If we make those changes, how long is it going to take? And all of those things have a lot of unknowns in it too. So it's sort of like, what is the best thing for us to do? With the mobile app gets into like this entire quagmire of how much of our time do we want to waste, or is it even wasted recoding things? And that's a complicated question. So,
and what's funny is all of that bleeds into the new user experience. So we're like, I know a lot of people are like, well, the games look the same for the last 2 years. Well, I'm seeing all these changes that are coming up, and there's like so many of them. And it's like, okay, where in this process do we finally create this New Year's experience, knowing full well that, well, this change is going to happen, this change is going to happen, this change is going to happen. Some of them is just cosmetics. But still, if you want a nice, beautiful, polished tutorial, you're showing how it works, and then we change it all. And then it's like, oh, what do we do now? So clearly, whatever we come up with needs to be modular. It needs to be like, well, this piece is separate from this other piece that might change or has variables involved with it. But this stuff is probably going to stay the same. So let's figure it out that way. And so, you know, as we approach the part of the time in the year, the roadmap where we addressing that, then all these things come into play that you just finished outlining.
Yep. All right. Next up, could we explore the idea of totems being rentable like cards? I love that idea. We'll see. Gladius cards. In the future, will Gladius cards be non-soulbound? I don't see that happening anytime soon. You know, if there's a huge push for it, maybe, but I think some of the joy is that those are only soulbound that will remain such. SPS reward delegation. How far is the progress to have SPS reward delegation as a feature inside of the Splinterlands website? Reward delegation, I think, has got to be part of the validator system, and hopefully I think we're entering the final stages of the private net testing. So hopefully by the end of March, that thing is like fully live, fully operational in private testing. And then by Q2, we start moving that to like open repository and other pieces. And that's where things like SBS reward delegation, or I think you really mean beneficiaries, where we have like staking and things like that start coming along in Q2. But we'll see. You know, nobody's ever like really built this the way that we're doing, so it's all R&D and it's slow moving, and the consequences are giant because it's all financial. So it's not like, oh, this gameplay gets shut down. It's like, oh, if we make a mistake, suddenly like SBS is getting spit out everywhere, or it's getting moved wrongly. So it's like highly R&D, highly experimental work, and the stakes are massive. So I can understand why the devs are being particularly attentive to details. Soulbound. To mitigate the effect of the soulbound reward cards and the demand of pack buying, would it be possible to treat soulbound reward cards as ghost cards in the reward equation by reducing the rewards given for soulbound reward cards versus unlock cards that you can directly pay fiat for? If this was implemented, you could pay to unlock the cards and it would gain its normal reward equation. This would also encourage unlocking of cards in the future versus just selling accounts. My thought here is that we're looking at a couple different ways in Land 1.5 where we would allow infinite staking of cards, you know, to compete for the SPS pool for Land, to compete for Praetoria's Secret. I was about to say Victoria's Secret, but it's Praetoria's Secret or the Secret of Praetoria. And then maybe in this one other circumstance where there's some battling over kind of commonly used tokens in the Land environment that are different from sort of the harvestable resources of individual plots. So if anything like that kind of comes together, and we'll see more of these things in the Land post that I hope is out by the end of the month, you know, there's going to be more syncs than you could possibly imagine. And like the little bit of ghost cards that we're giving, especially since they're not transferable and they're just for your account, you know, it won't matter. You just won't have enough cards to do all the things that you want to do, because literally you could use 3 times the amount of cards in existence plus whatever else has to go on Land in order to go work the monsters. I mean, it's just, there's an insatiable need for cards that comes in Q2. So a little bit of ghost cards, I don't feel like is a big thing. I can understand why you feel that now. Everything feels like, there's way too much Chaos Legion, and there's too many reward cards, and there's too many of these things going out. But yeah, we're just a couple months away from like massive freaking syncs. So hang tight, and the people that understand math and understand how that works, I think will do well. All right, SPS chain. What is the plan and current progress for the SPS validator node? Currently, the SPS chain has been created and facilitates the voucher. What will be the next asset that will be moved onto the SPS chain? Well, eventually we want all the NFTs over there, and there's more things that we want to do. We want staking and delegation and individual player staking and all the things that are in the white paper for that. But the next step, as I said, is just getting the private net live, fully functional. We don't see any other major things that we have to do to change it for right now to get private net live. We're hoping by the end of the quarter that it's live, and then we start working on the public test net, and then we can start adding more features over time. How will the SPS chain facilitate the land expansion and its schedule? That's a little bit less for the land, I think. Eventually we want all the NFTs on there, but the fungibles are like way more important to get all that stuff working first, and the NFTs will come later, maybe Q4, Q1 of next year or something. So I don't really see land expansion hitting first, but then again, all the tokens that we're going to release, the Sparkstone and Ulana seeds, all that stuff is likely to live on the validators too. So when we get into the actual production of things, that should impact the validator system. Will there ever be a time, perhaps after validator nodes are fully operational, that Splinterlands will no longer depend on the Hive blockchain? If so, what takes the place of resource credits and Hive power for transactions? So right now, the SPS chain is a side chain or sub chain of the Hive blockchain. So everything happens first on the Hive blockchain and then later on our sub chain or the side chain. It's possible that we would swap that out for a different chain. We could have a Splinter, a layer 1 Splinter chain as opposed to a layer 2 Splinter chain. We could use a different blockchain, or we could use multiple blockchains in whatever process we do. All of that is sort of fair game. Each different blockchain we might work on would have different criteria. They might not even have RC. They could have gas fees. They could have completely different systems. So I'm really open to that. I'm not like permanently married to Hive. I do think that Hive is the single best place right now for us to be operating, but who knows what that looks like in the next couple of years. Blockchain develops very rapidly, but I wouldn't expect any major changes for the foreseeable future. But there could be other chains that we work with or work on. Deck B, when will Deck B be usable? Be able to be used for guild buildings? Deck B is meant to be a longer term thing. I don't quite know. Matt can hopefully answer that the next time. When is the next update of the roadmap? Yeah, I would like to get something out. Maybe it won't be in February, but March. I'll try to get some updates for that. Login. I don't know how to prompt to force players to relog in works, but could we somehow get it to not happen in between claiming reward chests and revealing them? One of the most fun parts of the game is the reward reveals, and it's a regular occurrence. That feels like a bug. Harry, do you have that on your radar somewhere now?
It's a longer term fix to rework login. Right now, it's just after it expires, next time you try to do something that requires a posting, to submit to chain, it'll say, hey, you need to relog in and kick you back out, which is usually claiming rewards since, battles are basically off chain at this point.
Well, I like his point of not between the claiming. So like if it's pre-claiming, that's fine. If it's post-claiming, that's fine. But it just shouldn't be in between claiming where you're like claiming chests, but you don't get to see them.
Yeah. I will say, since this seems to come up all the time, you can replay your reward claims. If you go into the daily focus, there's a show last rewards, which will let you replay if you miss or accidentally close your reward claims. So there is a workaround already in the game, but ideally we should fix the login so that it doesn't kick you out at an inconvenient time. I'm not sure where that is on the roadmap, but it's in the backlog somewhere.
Okay. And vouchers. In order to burn more vouchers during future promo sales, is it possible that the team sets the value that vouchers can redeem for much closer to the current market price? The high redeem values for vouchers in previous sales seems to be out of touch with the actual market price. When we do things, we can set it for whatever we want, and we'll try to, we want vouchers getting out of the system, so that's out there. BFF proposal. Is the current BFF proposal intended to pull 20 million SBS from the DAO to pay BFF directly or to be released into SBL company for later use in securing exchange listings? The wording was vague and many people are lamenting the lack of clarity. We need much more information than is currently presented. No, no money will be exchanged to either Splinterland or BFF. It would go to the exchanges that the SBS would get listed on. So no, they won't like hold it as an intermediary. They won't touch it. It stays in the DAO. It's just like pre-approving that if Ali has a one or multiple exchange listing offers that he wants to go sign, that there's pre-funding, and we can't do that, through Splinterlands for legal reasons. We can't be the ones to touch it. And so your options are either the DAO allows it, or the DAO pays, or nobody pays, and we don't get additional listings. As far as I know, there are some talks about like how do we make it more transparent. But the problem is with the NDAs that the foundation has to sign, it makes it very inflexible purposely so that you can't run out there and like tell people, hey, let me show you all the details, because the exchanges don't want the details leaked. So that's a little bit of rock and hard place. And so at this point on, from now on, I don't want anybody to ask me something like when Binance or when listing or when Kraken or when whatever. It's not up to me. It's up to this community, and it's up to the offers that we have. If you guys don't approve a budget, then the answer is never. And it's not until a budget gets approved that these things will ever go through. So don't ask me, ask each other, because it's out of Splinterland's hands. It's up to the DAO. We are not the DAO. We can't function as a DAO. And so you guys are going to have to figure out what you want. I think that this proposal is a great solution. I trust Ali with my life, with my fortune. I have relied on him for 4 years for business advice and basically planning out every little step that we do. I'm sorry that more people don't know who he is, but he's absolutely amazing. He has an accountant background and a business background and an exchange background. He's a freaking degen through and through. So much of the liquidity provision is coming from BFF. These guys have been in every little piece of this. They own more land than anybody else in the game. They're just, they've been quiet and in the not front and center, but in the back of this. And so ultimately, the DAO has to choose what the DAO is going to do. But I think this proposal makes the most sense, and hopefully you guys will change some votes because it's failing rather terribly. DAO, are there more details on DAO community leader panel and how that will work? So we talked about that with WeirdBeard. How long is voting window and what is the expectation there? Voting window is done. 5 people have been named. And it sounds like there'll be some rotations up until we get a witness system live. And then I imagine that this sort of collapses into the witness system. I have 2 more questions. Is there any info you can share regarding guild alliances, including will there be any actual gameplay enhancements? So Matt has to go get like a full post out on that. We have multiple posts that we're waiting on for Matt. So we'll see what comes out next. But the most likely is Land 1.5 and guild alliances is on the roadmap for Q2. So at some point we'll get the features and what's involved in that out. And history for Guild Brawls. Thank you to the Splinterlands team for all the hard work you do. You always give us the best stuff. I have a request to please someday add some sort of history for Guild Brawls. Trying to keep track of past info is getting crazy because we have so much to analyze. Some sort of who won and which guilds played and who won against would be nice. Thanks, Immortal Gods. Yeah, why am I not surprised? It's those guys say we want to know how badly we've kicked everybody's butts for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you have to remember with it, though, is that at that point, when you start adding in stuff like that, wouldn't we just rather redo guild? You know what I mean? Like, it's like once you get under the hood of an old project car, one thing leads to another, leads to another. The way that like there is no true history for the guild brawls right now. They're all like their own events, from my understanding. So there's not even legacy history that we keep data on. So yeah, it's a whole project. Once we start doing that, that lets us also think about what else should we do.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to time. I let some of these interviews go extra long. I don't think we have time for general questions. I'm going to hop out of this chat and I'm going to go. I need like a a 30-minute break, but I'm going to come back and I'm literally going to go take a walk. And on that walk, I'll have my phone. I'm going to go hang out in probably just general chat here. And you guys can, I don't want it to be another town hall where I'm like sitting here telling you guys, hey, this is news and views from the company. I want it to be a discussion, and primarily around all this exchange stuff. So, my hope is that if you guys have questions that you want answered, and even a little bit of just general stuff, happy to do some QA. If you guys want to vent some negative opinions, or if you want to voice your support, all that stuff is open. So really just a conversation. I'm going to do it in about 30 minutes. So I need like a little break so that I can get some water and some food and get on my walk. But in 30 minutes from now, I'll be in general chat. Let's all hang out and talk, and let's talk through some of these things. When do we see more stuff from Tower Defense? The next dev diary just hit me. So that should be getting posted pretty soon. And we're moving into just getting this thing live. I don't know how long it's going to take to get live. I'm waiting for an update on that, but that's the part we're on. It's less building and more taking it live to the community with some beta testing. So we'll see what that looks like. I guess there's 2 questions here. I'll answer these, but really no more questions. We're already over. Why are time vaults, and I think you mean time crystals, in the proposal not soulbound? After we fought for deck B to be soulbound, because we're trying to get deck out of circulation, and it's not the same thing for a brand new token. We don't need time vaults or time crystal completely out of circulation. That's not the biggest part. But you do need DEC out. That's pretty critical. You mentioned mining on plots for SBS. Where's the SBS rewards coming from? It's coming from the land rewards. We're going to switch land rewards from just, do you own land to, are you mining on that land? And it's going to involve DEC staking and some cards. So no more free lunch for just owning land. Are you concerned about current regulatory developments related to staking and custodial services? Why or why not? That's a great question. And I actually just had some conversation about that. I'm not worried about it at all. The way that they went after Kraken, I don't like the method, and I really don't like many of these laws. I think they're totally nonsensical and dumb. But at least here, the fact that they went after them for doing this custodial service. Give me money, I will go do all the staking on your behalf, and I will send you rewards. I have to agree with them that in the currently written rules, that acts like a security because it's some third party doing something. And what they didn't do, they didn't say all staking is a security. That's also something that they could have done. These guys are a little bit maniacs, so they could have gone after all staking, but they didn't. They just went after third parties offering staking as a service for profit. And so they went after those guys. So it looks like staking's okay, just not third party staking. And I think that's extremely bullish for the way that Splinterlands operates. Question, could you give us a short high level update about the latest movie studio discussion? Yeah, just trying to negotiate some details, seeing if they work for both companies. And, next up, I think we have some of the content sorted of what content it would be. And then the question is, what price point would this happen at? What are the deal terms? What would they do to provide value? How would they market this? Who are our target audiences, and trying to figure out all the details. So that's your 4 minutes of extra questions. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time. I'll be back in 26 minutes in general chat. Feel free to join me there, and not recorded, just informal. And if you guys want to tell me something, or if you want to hear something from me, that's meant to be way more of a conversation, and looking forward to it. That's what I got, guys. Thanks, everybody. You have a great day.
When chaos reigns and hope is lost, when your darkest days aren't saved by the dawn, we bring the light to help guide the way. We are with you. We are the Rift Watchers. stand with you.